Hi everyone, welcome to the Rebel Rabbi. Today we will discuss what is the Mishnah. The Mishnah is the oral Torah, or the oral Bible, which was given to the Jews on Mount Sinai. In contrast to the Bible, the written Torah, which Moses wrote down on parchment, God commanded Moses not to write down the oral Torah, but to keep it given from generation to generation, passed down in a legacy verbally. What is in the oral Torah? In the oral Torah, it discusses all of the details from the different commandments which are discussed in the Torah. For example, what does it mean to keep this law? What are the details? What is the protocol to keep this law? And also vice versa. What is the details of a sin? What is the protocol of transgressing a sin? Now, many years later, after the times of the temple, the Jewish people were going through a very hard phase, and many of them were starting to forget all of this oral Torah, which was passed down for so many years. So the grand rabbi at the time, Rabbi Yehuda, who was the rabbi of all the Jews, decided that it was time that we have to write this down to make sure we don't lose it and we still have the oral Torah. So at that time, he made a decision, and just like we know, it says in the Bible that whatever the highest court of the rabbis decide, this is what we should do, and we should not astray to the left or to the right. At that time, the decision for the generation to save the oral Torah was to write it down. And when it was written down, through discussions of all the head rabbis in all the different schools, wrote down, he compiled in an order going through all the different sections and categories which are discussed in the Torah and all the commandments. He compiled what is known as the Mishnah. And the Mishnah goes through all the different categories in Torah and tells us the rulings according to the rabbis, which goes back all the way to Mount Sinai, where God told Moses the exact details of what needs to be done to keep all of the commandments. A typical example of the oral Torah explaining to us what is the commandments in the written Torah is the example of Shabbat. What is Shabbat again? No, I'm kidding. Shabbat is the Sabbath and the seventh day of the week that God rested after He created the world in 6 days. The Torah commands us to keep Shabbat and guard Shabbat, and the oral Torah explains to us, how do we keep Shabbat? How do we observe Shabbat? How do we guard Shabbat? And how do we sanctify Shabbat? Through making a blessing on the glass of wine or grape juice when it enters, and as well as when it exits, through the special prayers that we say Shabbat Eve and Shabbat Day, and the traditional Shabbat dinners and lunches. This is all explained in the oral law of the Torah. How do we do all of these aspects in Shabbat? Thank you for watching the Rebel Rabbi. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments down below.